We also love getting the insight from Julius Kim. He's from the law firm of Kim and Lavoie. You've taken us through the trial. There were no surprises today, none at all, and there won't be any surprises in sentencing. Here's my question. By law, could the judge have said today, look, we know where this is going. They're mandatory life sentences. Let's just get there. Or is the sentencing really for the victims to express their grief and what they want to come out of it?
That's a great point, Ted. You know, a criminal prosecution in and of itself is kind of a ceremony, right? It's a public condemnation of bad behavior, and part of that ceremony is the sentencing. And so I think it's important as part of the process, a part of the public sentiment that victims be allowed to express themselves. So, you know, we know that the 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide carry a mandatory life sentence, but we still have to go through this ritual, allowing people to express themselves, allowing the defendant to express himself and allocute or make his statements and before he ultimately gets sentenced.
Sue Opper, in her news conference after the verdicts were read, said she was professionally offended for the court decorum or lack thereof from Darrell Brooks. It was the first time we really saw her visually say how upset she was, but she had to keep it bottled up for the same reason the judge did, because this thing could be an appeal and they didn't want to give Brooks any avenue for an appeal.
That's right. You know, a lot of his behavior in court was obviously not good. And we want our courts to be places where there's decorum, where there's respect shown, because these are tense situations. And it's also respect of the process and respect of the institution of our courts. Darrell Brooks, for whatever reason, wasn't able to keep it together for much of this trial. And that offended Ms. Opper and a lot of people watching it. I cringed and winced many times as well. But ultimately, the process worked. Mr. Brooks was convicted, and you know, kudos to everyone that was involved in this whole process.
He, of course, has a right to appeal, and Sue Opper said she suspects that he will. If you were defending him, if you look at this case, is there any avenue for him, or do you think this will be met with a no, this was tied up and jelly tight, and your appeal is denied?
You know, that's a tough question to answer, in all honesty. If there was anything that might be grounds for an appeal, it might just be the initial decision in the first place as to whether Mr. Brooks was competent to represent himself. Not competent to stand trial, but competent to represent himself. And I'm just saying that because of his behavior and his seemingly inability to conform his behavior in a way that he could effectively communicate with the judge and the jury and anyone else. Other than that, I think that Judge Brooks and the state made good record on everything else that they did. They explained everything as to why they were doing things as they went along. And, you know, if there's anything, that's something that's jumping out at me.
Julius Kim, we have tugged on your sleeve every day and said, can you help us understand this? And you have, and we are grateful for your time, sir.
My pleasure, Ted.